Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever it is for you. For me, it is just past midnight on Wednesday, July the 23rd, which makes this the news for Tuesday, July 22nd, day 1245 of Vladimir Putin's war of aggression against the people of Ukraine. How do you do? I'm Peter Alexievich, and this is the Live at 5 from Kyiv, coming to you live from this major European capital, currently under siege, though not under an air alert tonight, thank God. And we'll talk about last night's air alert. Good evening, Helena. Hey, Thomas. Anthony, Tommy, Tom. Hey, Roy Daniels. Hey, Jackie, Nicola, Richard Prexis, PH. The peeps are certainly coming in. Hey, guys. How's everybody doing tonight? Evie, good evening. Hetty Yankee. Good evening, Hetty. Hey, Daryl Roberts. Hey, Hobo. Hey, Tisno. Mike Kelly. Evening, Scully. There's Scully. Scully was the sponsor of last night's live. And I haven't seen him come in yet. But, I guess they're a political group in California, the Davis Democratic Group. And they are a great bunch of guys. And they are the sponsor of tonight's live. Yeah. So everybody thank Davis Democratic for sponsoring this live. I sure do appreciate it. I literally could not do this without the Patreon guys and the sponsors. So I really appreciate it. Now, last night, we did see, right as the live came on last night, we got word that Ukrainian drones were striking the Milarovo air base just over the Russian-Ukrainian border east of Donetsk City. Now, that air base, because it is so close to the border, has come under attack before. We still don't have a good battlefield damage assessment from last night's strike on the air base. But what was released today was video. Now, imagine your surprise, everybody. I can just imagine your surprise when I tell you that according to local authorities, all of the drones were shot down, right? But debris fell on the territory of the air base and caused some fires. That is such bullshit. There is great video out on Telegram showing at least 2 successful drone strikes against the base. On the video, you can hear the drones winding up as they come in. You see them hit. You hear the explosions. But that's about all we get. We don't know what they hit. We don't know. We just don't know. We don't have a good battlefield assessment. But Milarovo was certainly one of last night's targets. Now, the Russians, for their part, last night managed to only scrape together 42 drones to send at the territory of Ukraine. Many analysts are now warning, including the Germans. That's German military intelligence, sorry. Including German military intelligence, that it appears that the Russians are stockpiling drones for really large-scale attacks in the 1,000 to 2,000 drone category. Oh, yeah, Neil, that's a good point. I did hear that Ozzy passed away today. May he rest in peace. Now, somebody said to me, Ozzy passed away today, and I said, that's nonsense. Ozzy's been dead for 15 years. The drugs just hadn't worn off yet. So God bless him and the whole Osborne clan at this time. Okay. So Russia only managed to scrape together 42 drones last night. Ukrainians knocked down 33 of them for a 77% interception rate. The fear, of course, or the concern that many analysts and foreign intelligence agencies are citing is that Russia is stockpiling drones. Now, it is interesting because at this critical inflection point in the war, where Russia is so desperately trying to catch up on drone technology and production, to compete with the Ukrainians because they can't do shit on the battlefield. Russia has released a PR video. Hey, Van. Russia has released a PR video. Very glitzy, very slick. Are you ready for this? Touting the modern accomplishments of the Russian Federation's Yalabuga drone factory. That's the one in Tatarstan that we talk about all the time, where the Shaheds, the Garans are produced, including the new Garan 2s, and that has been struck by Ukrainian drones on at least 2 separate occasions, one of which shut down the finishing production line, or the final production line. For at least a week, that was down. So now, dig this. The Russians have released this glitzy video, really hardcore Russian propaganda, of the largest and most secret drone facility on Earth. That's literally the tagline. The largest and most secret drone facility on Earth. And then they take you in and they give you a fucking tour. Critical to this video, or critical to your tour and your impressions of the place, are the bright, smiling faces of young Russians who are in the plant doing the work. Now, many of these kids appear to be school age, like late high school, college age. And there is a definite nationalistic tinge to the discussion that leads one to believe that part of the purpose of this video is the military indoctrination of the next generation of Russians, right? The happy, productive worker contributing to the Russian war effort. Further to that, this highlighting of young student-aged workers and the indoctrination of those workers. What struck me was the obscenity of the slick production values and the beautiful young workers diligently working for the state, all caught on video, their participation in the willingness to create weapons that will be used to murder Ukrainian civilians, unalive grandmothers in their beds. The video documentation of these people with their hands soaked in the blood of Ukrainians, building the war material for war crimes to be committed by the Russian Federation. That was the chilling dichotomy of this beautiful to watch propaganda video and the really chilling reality of what these kids were engaged in. In the past, you may remember when Ukraine first targeted that facility, the Russian media said that it was student housing, that the Ukrainians, thanks, Craig, that the Ukrainians had targeted student housing. This is bullshit. The Ukrainians targeted the barracks where the war criminals that produce the materials for these war crimes sleep at night. So I did think all of that was very interesting, but none of that is as interesting or important, I don't think, as this next bit, which is going to be overlooked everywhere. And the reason that it's going to be overlooked everywhere is because nobody is paying attention to the Urals Chamber of Commerce and Industry, right? I don't know. When I was at the Microsoft Corporation, one of my jobs was to intersect with chambers of commerce around the Mid-Atlantic region. And what's coming out of the Urals Chamber of Commerce and Industry today, is a scheme to import into Russia 1 million Indian workers. And when I say Indian, I mean East Indian, subcontinent of India workers. 1 million men drawn from India. This is being framed as an industrial initiative, a business initiative. Russia is short on men. We need men to drive industry. We're going to bring in 1 million Indians. Now, here's the thing. You can frame it all you want as a business initiative. You can frame it all you want as good business. But it barely conceals the stark reality, the nightmare of the loss of a generation of Russian men either fleeing the country because they're worried about mobilization, or simply being one of the million victims that Putin has created among Russians of this war. And then there is the question of the status. If they bring these Indians into the country, what is to stop them from becoming victims of the war, shanghaied into the front line, like we've seen with the Cameroonians and the Laotians and the Sri Lankans and the Indians and the Tibetans? And I mean, the list goes on and on of the Russian war machine preying on the most desperate and poor people on earth to feed into Putin's imperial meat grinder to satisfy his own imperial ambitions. Oh yeah, the guy from Texas. What was his name? Huffman or Duffman or Doff? Something like that. Fucking idiot from Texas, an American who has everything in the world, can't stand the idea that gay folks might get equal rights. Can't stand it. Makes him crazy. So he takes his family out of liberal-ass left-wing nutjob Texas, right? Because that's what Texas is like, to move to Russia with his wife and 3 children. This is just like the Canadian family with their 12 kids, who had the same kind of nightmare experience there. Now the husband joined the military. And where is he? He's headed to the front. Did they tell him he was going to be a mechanic at a rear position? Yes, they did. Of course they fucking did. They're going to tell these Indians that they're going to be cleaning schools, janitorial work at the school, rebuilding Mariupol, like they told the North Koreans. Or not the North Koreans, I'm sorry. Who did they pull into that scheme to rebuild Mariupol? But then when they got there, they took their passports, gave them rifles, sent them to the front line. It was a Latin American country, not Colombia, not Brazil, not Peru. I'm sorry, but a bunch of folks from Latin America. Cuba, Cuba. Cubans. That's what they did to the Cubans. The losses among these folks. Donald Belza, thank you for confirming that, Donald. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I think that we are at a point now where it is simply irrefutable that Russia's war is being outsourced, that they do not have the men to fight this war, and they are in trouble. They don't have the men to run their economy. I apologize, I'm saying men. They don't have the people, the warm bodies, to both fight this war and keep their economy afloat. They just don't have it. Hey, Lola. So the Russia's war is now irrefutably being outsourced to the most desperately poor of the global South, who may have no idea what they are being drawn into. Oh, it's not a war, you two. Oh, this should be good. Do tell us. It's not a war. What is it? It's a special military operation? In Russia, if you say it's a war, you can go to jail for 8 years. That's one of the reasons I keep saying it's a fucking war. It's got a 1,200 kilometer front line, right? Why are people falling for the draft? I don't know what that means. You'd have to be a lot more specific for that. I mean, if you're talking about people signing contracts to join the military in Russia, they're doing it for the money. All the POWs that the Ukrainians capture say they're there for the money, right? Because right now the sign-up bonus is about $40,000. That's about 4 years worth of the average Russian salary. 4 years. Imagine you were desperately in debt and somebody offered you 4 years of salary. I don't know the game, bro. You don't know the game, bro. It's a game. It's not a game. It's war. So Subway Green, you meant conscripts from outside of Russia. It's because they're lied to. We think, right? In interview after interview with these foreign soldiers who are captured as POWs, we consistently hear the same story. I was told that I would be guarding a rear position in Moscow. I was told that I would be a mechanic at a rear position because I'm a mechanic. I was told that I was going to be rebuilding buildings in Mariupol because I'm a construction worker. Right? I was told. These guys are being lied to. They're being made promises. Oh, and by the way, when a Russian signs up for the military, they get $40,000, right? When these Cameroonians sign up, or these Laotians, they get 13. Less than a third of what the Russians are getting. Oh yes, Seawolf, the banking crisis is coming. Lars sticking up for me with the trolls. Thanks, Lars. And Nightshade too. Thanks, guys. You guys are the best. Okay. So I do feel deep sympathy for these people that get suckered in. I do. But caveat emptor, baby. Buyer beware. You got to know who you're dealing with. And I do think that recruitment among these folks is getting more difficult as the word gets out on the internet of what's happening to them. Exactly, Steve-O. That's exactly how the Russians think of them. Look at how the Russians, look at, I feel bad because, you know, this young black American woman who felt like she got a lot of racism in the United States, which she probably did, fled it to Russia, thinking that the Russians were enlightened on race, and then immediately, instead of getting called names in the street, she was nearly beaten to death by a bunch of white Russians. I mean, you have to feel sorry for that too, although it's so fucking stupid. American joins Russian army and disappears. WNC, I don't know if you're talking about that one guy, that asshole, that communist from Texas, libertarian, whatever, from Texas, or you're talking about that, it was like a senator's son, right? No, it was the former CIA director's son who joined the Russian. These American traitors are just too much for me. It's so stupid. I look at these guys like the TikTok fugitive. Do you know this guy? He's some piece of shit criminal who fled to Russia and now does Russian propaganda for them. Scott Ritter, Sasha, these kinds of guys. When Moscow breaks, these guys are the first ones going to be up against the wall. Like, have they never read a history book? It's insanity. Well, Russia is the biggest country on the planet. I should imagine that some of it is quite beautiful. But you are right. The liberals stop killing black babies at abortion clinics, because that's something that's happening. I mean, what world do you live in? You know what the difference, you know how I can tell you that babies are not being killed at abortion clinics? Here's how I can tell. I can put an embryo in the freezer to preserve it. If I do that with a baby, it doesn't fucking work. That's how I know a baby and an embryo are not the same thing. Give me a fucking break. Yeah, Lola says he's seen that guy bragging about his apartment rent is so low. That's because everyone is poor, Lola. The rent has to be low because everyone is fucking poor as shit. It's 2025 and the average Russian salary is about 10 grand a year. You know? Yeah, it's a crime and a sin. It's a crime and a sin. So, caveat emptor, baby, buyer beware. On the front line, not much is going on, except... Now, look, we have been through this before. We went through it with Andriivka. We went through it with Bakhmut. The Russians push and push and grind until they take a city. And all the Russian trolls online there are saying, oh, Bakhmut has fallen. That's it. That's the end. Right? Bo Gregory, if you're talking to me, first of all, I'm here every single day. I publish videos almost every single day. I do publish every single day to Blue Sky, Twitter, X, whatever it is now, Threads, Facebook, and Instagram 7 days a week. If you follow me any of those places. And your name is completely unfamiliar to me. I have never seen your name before as far as I know. Black Sea Underwater Fleet. Okay, now. Yeah, Guy, maybe we can talk about that later. So here's what's happening in Pokrovsk. It appears that after tens of thousands of lives have been lost, after over a year of grinding, for 8 months now, the Russian forces have been 15 kilometers outside of Pokrovsk and couldn't get any closer. Now they have finally breached the southeastmost portions of like the greater metropolitan area. Not the city proper, but the greater metropolitan area. So they are entering Pokrovsk. That is fair to say, I believe. What is going to happen? We don't know. The Ukrainians have held them off in the Pokrovsk direction for over a year. It is likely that they will hold them off a while longer. Will Pokrovsk eventually be lost? We've been hearing from the Russians that it's going to fall for the last year. It's just like Bakhmut. It's just like Andriivka. What's going to happen? The city may fall. Will it fundamentally change the outcome of this war? No. The Ukrainians have spent the last year building deep, entrenched, defensive fortifications. Just about, I want to say 12 kilometers, might be 12 miles, but like, let's say 15 to 20 kilometers west of Pokrovsk. They've been building defensive fortifications. The Ukrainians are going to fall back to those defensive fortifications. And they're going to continue to grind down the Russian army. That's what's going to happen. Is Dr. K here? Everybody say hello to Dr. K. Awesome. Nice to see you. You don't know Dave Hayes, do you? I've been trying to get in touch with Dave. I can't get in touch with him. I don't know what's going on with him. He seems to have totally checked out. I hope he's all right. So if you don't follow Dr. K, Give her a follow. She's a political scientist that talks about how information is shared. And she certainly helps me to disambiguate some of what we hear from Russia and elucidate the geopolitical implications of everything that we see happen every day. Highly recommend. So, look, Pokrovsk is threatened. Pokrovsk may be lost. Are small gains on the battlefield what's going to win this war? Fuck no, they're not. That is not how this war is going to be won. It's going to be won by Ukrainian ingenuity. And right now it appears that what Ukrainian ingenuity is driving is this complete constriction of Russian logistics. We just saw the last railroad hub to Crimea shattered in what was likely a drone strike. Might have been a missile strike. It's not entirely clear. But we saw that happen. We've seen the strikes against the Kerch Bridge. If Russia is permitted to take Ukraine, they will absolutely continue into Europe. We already know the first thing, right? They want to get to Transnistria in Moldova so that they can take Moldova. There's like an unbelievable amount of Russian stockpiles of equipment and ammunition in Transnistria. And Putin has threatened to send 10,000 troops there. The only problem is he has no way to get them there. They're not going through Ukraine to get there, not if Ukraine can help it. And Moldova's not going to let them go through Moldova to get there. So it's very hard to understand how he would even get them there. He certainly can't fly them there over Ukraine because now Ukraine's got Patriot defenses coming out the ass, right? This is really good news coming out of the Ramstein meeting in Germany, which again is being run today with no U.S. leadership. I'm not even sure that there's a U.S. representative there. I'm pretty sure Pete Hegseth is not attending. But please, if anybody knows for sure, correct me on that. I'd like to know who from the United States is there, and I didn't have a chance to look it up today. So coming out of the Ramstein format, we have confirmed Germany will transfer 5 Patriot batteries and interceptor missiles to Ukraine. Now that's huge. That means Ukraine is going from 8 Patriot batteries to 13. Just one away. Kyiv says it needs a minimum of 14 to cover the country. So it's just minimum. It would be better with 30. That's what they really want is 30. So this gets us to 13. Now, when they'll be delivered, we don't know. Pistorius said likely within months, as soon as months. Maybe 50 days, right? We'll talk about that in 1 second. Along with the Patriots, they're sending 200,000 rounds of Gepard shells, right? Because big drone defense here is the Gepards. So nearly 250,000 Gepard shells. Canada, following the Danish model. Now, the Danish model is where foreign countries contract weapons manufacture in Ukraine for Ukraine and potentially for themselves. And so you're investing both in getting weapons to the front line for the Ukrainians to defend themselves and in the base industry here, helping to keep the economy alive. I just want to pause for a second because there is a legitimate question. What is a Patriot battery? And a Patriot battery is an air defense system composed of, it's a mobile air defense system. So it's a bunch of different trucks. One truck is like your long-range radar to detect enemy targets and plot targeting solutions. Then you have another radar truck for short and medium range targeting. Then you have a command module that coordinates the activities of the targeting solutions and the delivery systems, which are the launchers. So the launchers are where the missiles actually get launched from. And a Patriot battery can have, I think a minimum is that it's got to have 3 launcher vehicles. One is a special purpose unit that has 2 missiles that it can launch, and the other 2 each have 4 launchers. So it's a complex billion-dollar system that represents not the state of the art, because these things are 40 fucking years old, but they are still one of the preeminent air defense systems on the planet, and absolutely essential if you are in a situation where you need to deal with incoming hypersonic missiles, which the Russians have, right? The Zircons and the Kinzhals. So you need something like that for those. Okay, now, so I hope that answers the question. If there's follow-up, maybe you guys can help the fellow out down in the chat. The Canadians intend to invest an undisclosed amount of money in Ukrainian defense industrial base. Plus $20 million Canadian. So what is that, about $6, $6.50? $20 million Canadian for tank maintenance. Awesome sauce. The Netherlands is dedicating 200 million euros for building interceptor drones, plus 125 million euros for F-16 maintenance, munitions, drones, and air defense. The Netherlands has also said that they will substantially contribute to the Patriot Initiative, though that is unclear what that means at this time. It might just be giving Germany money. Norway, where's my buddy Lars and Arna? The Norwegians are so great, man. They're ponying up $1 billion for drones. $1 billion US, right? Not crones or whatever. $1 billion US for drones. There he is. Hey, Arna. UK. The UK announced a 50-day drive to arm Ukraine and push Putin to the negotiating table. Now, while all of that sounds great, I do feel compelled to offer perspectives from the well-informed and expert opinions, as you know. One of those comes from the ISW, the Institute for the Study of War, the DC-based American war think tank, who say basically that only significant battlefield setbacks will compel Putin to the negotiating table, and that Ukraine is not in a position to deliver those critical setbacks for months or even seasons of battle. So the ISW is uncertain as to how long Russia's will to continue will continue. These sentiments about the nature of the battlefield, as represented by the ISW, were eerily echoed on the economic side of things for me when I listened to an interview with, and I apologize, I didn't get her first name right. It's like Cesara or Zarina, but it's neither of those. It's in that ballpark, Giganti. And Miss Giganti, Dr. Giganti, pardon me, Dr. Giganti is a PhD visiting fellow at the Atlantic Council. If I'm not mistaken, it's the Atlantic Council. And according to Dr. Giganti, The Russian economy is nowhere close to collapse. Now, that's not what any of us want to hear, right? And she had some good arguments. I apologize. I didn't take good enough notes to reiterate her arguments. I will try to do that for tomorrow night because her points were well taken, very well taken. And, I keep thinking to myself, and as I have expressed to all of you here, the December budget reconciliation is coming. The December tax haven for corporate taxes expires. And now everybody's taxes for the last 12 months are going to be due in December. 51 of 174 coal mines have already shuttered their doors or are about to and declare bankruptcy. And we expect probably another 23 to follow suit in the next few months. The Russian economy is not in great shape. But one of the things that Dr. Giganti was saying was that there are extraordinary measures that the Russians can take to ameliorate the immediate effects of what is likely to happen in December. And that includes things like just printing a lot of money. It includes things like seizing bank accounts, seizing oligarch assets, which we are seeing happen, right? What's his name? The Russian gold oligarch who was seized on his $50 million private jet last week, arrested, and then his gold mines, literal gold mines, nationalized to feed the insatiable appetite for destruction that is the Russian war machine. So there is lots of money that Putin can extort from the so-called Russian elites, which is not a term I like to use at all. But that could buy him some more months. We know that the Russians are expecting trouble starting in December. Or in January, rather. We know that. How do we know that? Because the Duma just passed a law granting the FSB the right to have its own private pre-trial detention centers. Read torture chambers, right? So the Russians know that they are in the near term going to have a need to disappear dissidents, silence objectors, and have a place to put the bodies for the mass arrests that are coming. So trouble is brewing, my friends. You don't ask to have private prisons unaccountable to anybody unless you expect to use them. Thanks, PH. Nicola, what law are you talking about? Are you talking about the one I just talked about? Belgorod. I did want to mention this. Belgorod, we saw HIMARS hit against an S-300 system and another Nibu M. They've got to be almost out of those by now. And they're $100 million a whack. If I am not mistaken, we have now seen $700 million in Nebo M's blown to smithereens. Phew. Yes, and if you live in Russia, paint your windows shut. Paint your windows shut, boys. Okay, so I addressed the Duma law question, right? What's the impact of Putin dissolving oligarch after oligarch? So that is a great question, right? Because here in the West, we would think to ourselves, well, gosh, these oligarchs must be getting together to take Putin out, right? They just saw their buddy, the third richest man in all of Russia with his gold mines, seized off his own plane and all of his assets nationalized. Surely the other oligarchs are getting ready to pounce on Putin. No, apparently not. And this is why we in the West always get Russia wrong. We do not understand the world they live in because we live in a world where our decisions are made on self-interest and rationality. They live in a world where their decisions are based on, if I don't make the right decision, I could fall out a fucking window or end up in a gulag for what's left of my life. So now dig it. This guy, I'm not going to get his name right. Ian, if I'm not mistaken, it's Ian Duncan Smith. And he just wrote a piece. And as I understand it, this guy knows Russia a little bit, and he knows a lot of people in Russia. And he just wrote a piece about the mindset of the Russian oligarchs. And what he is saying is that they are all desperately afraid. That nobody wants to step a toe out of line. Nobody wants to step a toe out of line because they are afraid of what will happen to them. Right? We just had this spate of deaths and detentions. The detention of the gold oligarch, the oil transfer tycoon from Transneft, who fell out of the 17th story window of his apartment building despite living on the 10th floor. Then you have the transportation minister found, dead, sucking on his own revolver in his car outside of a park in Moscow. And the list goes on, right? Like, I could keep going. So I do want to mention Roy Daniels, who's a good friend of the channel, and who often sends me stuff, sent me a piece about how the chief Supreme Court Justice of Russia died today. And I want to highlight that in that case, we're talking about a 71-year-old woman who had been sick. Her health had not been good. It does not appear that there is anything suspicious about that death. People in their 70s die. People in their 50s die. If you haven't seen Bill Burr's Drop Dead Years comedy special, and you are a person of a certain age, I highly recommend it. So, the Chief Justice of Russia's Supreme Court did pass away today. It appears that that was a normal, natural end-of-life event. But everybody else, it's very disconcerting when one looks around. And the thinking among the oligarchs seems to be that they are all just trying to weather this storm. They are trying to, rather than conspiring against Putin, which is far too dangerous, they are trying to avoid any confrontation, make sure they're supporting doing what they're being asked to do, and trying to cross their T's and dot their I's so they don't end up having a cup of polonium tea. Okay. Now, so that's it for me. That's the top line stuff for today. Dawn, thank you for your kind words. I appreciate that. I do want to thank the Davis Democratic Club again, and Mr. Yamagata, who is the representative of that club. Those guys, man, they are great. They retweet everything I tweet. They share all my videos. I'm deeply appreciative of the support that Davis Democratic gives, and that they now sponsor the live. That's really appreciated too. I have no other live sponsors this week or next week, and next week the rent is due. So if anybody can sponsor a live, that would be great. Thank you very much. The PayPal is in the description. Or join the Patreon. Why Ozzy and not DJT? Because only the good die young. So I'm afraid Donald Trump is going to live to be 906. Does Putin pay his FSB and the people who keep him safe a lot of money so they can't be corrupted? No, Subway, just the opposite. He pays them very little, and then he insists that they use their positions of power to steal from the Russian government and people. And then make sure that they cut him in on that money, and make sure that he knows what they have done so that he can always have them arrested should he need to, either merely to dispose of witnesses or send a message to others. It is the exact opposite way of thinking of any rational modern mind. It is a gangster, primate mentality of might makes right, and that there is no objective truth in the world. Look at the Minister of Transportation. Why did he get a promotion when he just embezzled $246 million from the defense budgets? I'll tell you why. To cover the asses of all the generals who he shared that $246 million with. That's why. So instead of going to jail or exposing a cover-up, he gets rewarded with a promotion to Minister of Transportation. As Lars says, it is a mafia-style system. Hetty Yankee, make no mistake. Donald Trump's economic playbook, the tariffs, the devaluing of the dollar, the driving up of interest rates, all of that is straight out of the post-Soviet Russian oligarch playbook. It is how they stole everything for themselves. Donald Trump's whole mission is to wreck the economy of North America, not the US, North America, the Canadian economy, the Mexican economy, and the US economy. Wreck it so that he can hold the greatest fire sale in history for him and his billionaire chums. The greatest transfer of wealth. Look at the transportation minister. Sorry, not him. There were so many deaths last week, it's hard to keep them straight. No, the guy who fell out the 17-story window, but who lived on the 10th floor, the CEO of, I think he was CEO, of Transneft. Transneft is the company that owns all of the oil pipelines in Russia. So every barrel of oil that transited those lines, he was making transport fees on. One of the wealthiest people in Russia, right? How did he become this? With the collapse of the Soviet Union and then the bankruptcy of Transneft in its earlier form, he picked up the pipelines at pennies on the dollar. And that's the world that Donald Trump intends to create for his billionaire friends. The greatest fire sale in history is coming to the American stock market. Oh, Mike Kelly wants to know what was happening earlier when we got on and lost the connection. So, Mike, one of the things that I have avoided since I have been here in Kyiv is going to the shelter. I'm sorry. I know it's wrong. I know that it's stupid. And I should go to the shelter during air raids. But if I did that, I would never get anything fucking done. There's air raids all the time. And part of my job, I think, the way I think about it, is when we are under attack. And I can share that with you, that visceral experience. It brings what's happening here home much more strenuously than me just talking about it. There's a visceral response I get from people. However, what's happening in the shelters is important. And it's important that people see it. So what I did today was I went to one of the shelter near me, and I tried to do a live from underground. And it worked for so many levels, and then nothing. The only thing is the interface doesn't update right away, so you think you're still talking to people, but you're not. So, Mike, if you were in that live today, I was trying to get ready for the next big drone attack when people will be in the shelter, and I'm going to try to do the live from the shelter. Yeah, nobody needs $50 to sponsor a live this week because we got Pingu, who sent a little bit of money, Jerry O, who I still owe, who sent a little bit of money. And so, I mean, really, if anybody's got $25, I'll put you together with those guys. You can be the live sponsor tomorrow. Hey, Betty Thompson. BBC did a special on the 48 underground subway shelters. There must be 48 in Kyiv alone, right? My dream is not for sale has an uncle in Kyiv whose apartment was hit and destroyed. I'm so sorry. I do love your handle, though. When is going to be the transfer of power in Russia? I don't know, Alex. I can't imagine. I mean, the shit they're going to have to do to survive what's coming in December. I mean, they're going to have to go balls to the walls to survive that. I absolutely believe. So we'll see. Now, the question of the million Indians being recruited into the Russian workforce, that could indicate that Russia's just out of men. Like, they're just out of a workforce. You know, what was really interesting to me about that video, the one that they shot in the Tartaristan drone factory, you didn't really see Ugandan women. And as I understand it, the bulk of the workforce there are Ugandan women. And Botswanan, Ugandan, and someplace else right there. What was the country Mugabe was in charge of? It used to be Rhodesia. Zimbabwe. Why December? Because there's a whole bunch of reasons, but the short answer is that the way the Russians keep their books, they hide all the losses until the December budget reconciliations. And that's when everything hits the fan. You know, you look at like Gazprom's books from last year, right? I'm sorry, not last year, the year before. In 2023, in September, end of the third quarter, right? So going into October, Gazprom had an $8 billion profit. And yet when they did the reconciliation in January and all the debt and losses were hidden, were shown, they had a record-breaking loss of, I think, $6.9 billion. Even though 3 months before they were in the black, $8 billion. And the government works the same way. They all do this. Additionally, it's important to remember that for 2025, there was a tax holiday, or rather an abeyance period for corporate taxes. Nobody had to file their taxes quarterly this year. It's all been put off until December. Now, this is causing huge budget holes in the Russian budget, driving deficit spending that we haven't seen out of Russia since the fall of the USSR. That's not entirely true, since just before Putin took power. And so all those corporate taxes are going to be due in December, and a lot of those companies have declared bankruptcy. Those are never going to get paid. Come on. So I think December is going to be a real challenge for the Russians. Remember, the weather gets bad in December too. So while you might have a half-decent autumn, by the time December comes around, it's cold, it's wet, it's a nightmare out there. And with morale already such a problem, I can't imagine that adding starvation and hypothermia to that is going to make it better. I feel even if Putin passes, his regime will stay. And I think that that's a very common feeling. I don't think that you are wrong to feel that way, right? Like recent history would indicate that you're probably right. Not me. I think Putin's death is going to be a power vacuum that we will see the Russian Federation descend into an orgy of violence that no one can stop. You can't stop it. Yes, Aston, along with our buddies Jerry O and Pingu, right? It'll be the three of you. But yeah, definitely, dude. You're down. First time sponsor, thank you. Putin's regime is a mirror of Ceausescu's regime in the 80s. Yep. Sorry, I wanted to ask about the anti-corruption bill. I did say I would talk about that, didn't I? No, Roy, I don't have good demographic information on that. I'm sorry. It's a good question. If you just Google Russian demographics, you should be able to answer that question better than I could right now off the top of my head. And I'd love to see the answer. Very quickly, with just 2 minutes left, I again want to thank the Davis Democratic Club, who are the sponsors of tonight's live. I want to thank Nightshade, who has the Peter's Peeps group on the Book of Faces. If you don't follow Nightshade, give Nightshade a follow. And Lars, who has the Discord server. And I feel like I'm forgetting. Oh, and the best moderator team on the Tickety Talk. I don't think Feisty was here tonight, but Jay, Travis, Maddie, and Pete, thank you all very much. Are you agree with the theory as USA can't leave Russia to a part in more countries as it will chaos? Alex, I don't really know what that question means, but it makes it sound... No, I got one more question I want to go back to. I want to go back to Nicola's question. But it makes it sound like you're saying that the USA can determine Russia's future. It can't. Only the people of the Russian Federation can. And right now, we are aware of at least 6 armed secessionist groups inside of Russia trying to free their region from under the imperial yoke of Moscow. And then of course you've got like the internecine conflict between like the Dagestanis and the Chechens who want to murder each other. And already we're seeing occasions of violence pop up there. So nobody knows what the future of the Russian Federation is, but it is definitely up to the Russians to determine it. I'm not familiar what theory you're referring to. I'm sorry. Now, Nicola's got a question about the anti-corruption law that was passed today. So, guys, I generally do not comment on internal political affairs. I think that's not really our business. It's up to the Ukrainians to work those things out themselves. It's not really our business. But from what I understand about this bill, it's very unfortunate that it passed. It does seem to be a step in the wrong direction. Now, having said that, I want to reiterate my support for President Zelensky, for the government in Kyiv. These guys are getting a lot done under very difficult circumstances. But the bill today, I think, rightly raises concerns. And the thing is, if it really goes too far, the European Union is going to talk about it. Oh yeah, I know a lot of people that were protesting today. Well, it doesn't matter, but a lot of people were protesting today. So Again, it's an internal Ukrainian matter. If it jeopardizes their EU status, then it's going to have to be undone, right? It's very technical internal politics, but the concern is that it opens a door to new graft and corruption inside of a country that is supposed to be doing its level best to end those entrenched, systemic, corrupt practices that are holdovers of a bygone Soviet era. Estimate of almost 1 million military-age men left in the country. 700,000, 800,000. Thanks, Roy. Was Roy, right? Yes. Courtney, I feel like that's half my job here, is to take notes from the Ukrainians about how we might save American political democracy. Zelensky did sign the bill and returned it to the Rada tonight, yes. Yeah, it's disconcerting. I don't think that's unfair to say. But guys, I mean, think about the pressure that this guy is under. Think about the pressure that this government is under just to keep the lights on, literally. You know, so I'm certainly willing to cut them some slack. OMP, he already signed it. We have confirmation that it was returned signed to the Rada tonight. Hey, everybody, there's Tom Weber. Tom Weber joined the Patreon and then increased his membership to the Sea Babies level. Thank you, Tom. And that gets you a video sponsorship every month. Now, Tommy did this after the 15th of the month, so normally he would not get a video sponsorship until July, but right now I'm feeling very generous, and Tom is a longtime friend of this channel. So I did a video yesterday, Tom. I don't know if you saw it. You were the sponsor of that video. And I've made it an offer to everybody else that if any of them join Sea Babies, they will get a video sponsorship this month too. Well, Dawn, you know, I get it, but again, the Ukrainians are grown-ups, and they are on a very difficult path and very difficult situation. I feel like our job is to support them as best we can, and trust them to do the right thing. I mean, they've been doing so much for so long with so little. They're basically qualified to do anything with nothing, and they're doing it every day. So, you know, let's get through the war and then see where we're at with these kinds of things. But it gave me pause today. It did give me pause. Okay. Exactly, common sense. That's exactly the way to look at it. Oh my, you guys nutso. 178K. Lars told me that our record is 197 last night. I didn't even know that. Like I did, but I forgot about it. Well, thanks everybody. Thank you very much. So it's already past 1 here, so I'm going to call it a night. Big thanks to Davis Democratic Club, the moderator team, Lars and Nightshade, and especially to all of you out there that do not turn away from what's happening in Ukraine, and instead try to look it in the face and see what we can all learn from it. Give us 10 minutes, we'll get you to 200K. Oh my God. Thanks, David Womack. Thanks, Laddie. Should we do it? Should we stay? Should we get to... Here, I can start tapping too. You've all been tapping so generously. Thank you. All right, let's do it. Let's do 200K. 200 on a Tuesday, on a Taco Tuesday. Trump always chickens out. Oh, man, I was listening to Mark Galeotti today. Do you guys know who Mark Galeotti is? He's another, like, college professor kind of guy. And he's written a lot of books about Russia. He knows about Russia. He said the best thing, not best thing, but he said the most insightful thing today, that I was mad that I didn't think of it, right? You know when somebody says something and you think, why didn't I see that? It's so obvious now that he said it. And that's exactly how I felt today. And we've been talking so much about this. I have talked at great length with all of you here about Trump's response, right? How there was no European weapons deal. He just said that. How there was no country with 17 patriots ready to send them. He just said that. And then how he managed to get the sanctions bill in the Senate, which I've been taking seriously, right? Like I've really been which I should have known. You never take Ladybug Lindsay seriously. But I have been taking it seriously because I saw Trump try to delay that bill and successfully delay it for 3 months. Then he comes up with this 50 days bullshit so he can delay it another 2 months, which is what Putin is asking for, right? But it never occurred to me, and Mark Galeotti spelled it out so beautifully today. It's a bill that will never be implemented. It would cause such economic hardship on the U.S. and the countries that they inflicted this on that it could never be used. It's like a nuclear weapon. It's only good if you don't use it. And that was the final coffin nail in everything Trump had said this week. That demonstrated to me he is doing everything he can to screw Ukraine, but doing it in a way that makes himself look good in the press. Unbelievable. Okay, Nightshade, good night. I'm going to disconnect you myself because you've obviously been drinking to say such a thing. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, 207,000 likes is now the record. Oh, that's a riot. You guys are the best. You were right, Michael. I was a fool to even be hopeful. I was a fool. I fucking know better. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, and other non-binary folks, thank you so much for joining me on this live. Make it a great day, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.